And welcome back, podcast listeners. You're on another fun-filled episode and drier conditions-wise episode of the Hitting Hardcourt podcast. I'm your host, JT, aka Apollo, aka whatever the hell you want to call me today, because it's my day off from an actual job. And got on the show with us, Jason, hailing all the way from the city of Los Angeles. So beautiful out there. I miss it down there.
91 degrees right now.
Come on, man. Come on. I'm barely getting mid 70s in Northern California right now. That was the peak of the day. It lasted for about half an hour, and I still had a sweater on. I miss Southern California with a passion. I mean, I'm sure that the everyone's out, sun's out, guns out, buns out, whatever you want to call it, and everyone's pretending like it's another day at the pool or at the beach.
Seriously.
Up here, people still have their winter beards on. And I say people, both genders included. So if you're ever thinking on going on a summer vacation, don't visit Santa Cruz, California, where the sun is not always shining and it may be about 30 degrees at night.
Ugh.
But moving on, so we're here to actually talk about basketball for a change, not myself or everything else is going on. And around the league, just want to talk about the biggest story, the biggest talk on everyone's mind is the state of the perceived top three teams right now. Well, we're actually going to get into four: San Antonio, Golden State, Cleveland, and Boston right now, who are all in one way or another the top or the second seed in their conference, or the top in one of the top 10 teams overall right now for the season. And last night, Boston put the chokehold on Golden State. And I just got to know, Jason, what do you think? Are we starting to see are we really starting to see the effects of this trade and creating this room for Kevin Durant and now him being missing? What's going on with this Golden State team right now?
Remember what Jay Crowder said in all season when they didn't sign Kevin Durant? He said, we were more mad that I gave them the formula on how to beat Golden State. Well, basically, they played Golden State last night like they played them last season when they beat them in Golden State.
Exactly.
Like they put the chokehold on them. And I'm not sure if it was Avery Bradley or if it was Isaiah Thomas who said it last night. He said we wanted to make them work on both ends and get them tired.
They did.
And if you look at it, Steph was 0 for 1 in the fourth, and I think Clay was 0 for 3. I'm guessing because the game might have already been out of hand. But you if anyone knows basketball within the last 4 to 5 years, you know that Steph and Clay are going to get some shots up, especially in the fourth.
Well, what you were looking at, I mean, if anyone was really watching the game or even glimpsed the game, what you saw were a pair of great sets of defensive plays by Avery Bradley and Marcus Smart. They were just Klay Thompson was literally wearing them. It was, you saw probably an inch of space in between the players. And I mean, Klay Thompson, when he got to what, it was 28 last night, and he had to work for at least 16 of those. And I mean, really work. Coming off screens, he had to cut harder. He had to run faster. His shots, he had to basically come off of barely touching the ball. And Steph, he had some great shots. He had a great shot to close out the third quarter when he shot it over the rookie from Boston. But just to say the least, I mean, Steph had to pump fake his defender out of the air, shoot under him just to get the shot off in time. And that was just a testament to Boston's defense last night. And I want to say that Boston's playing great defense right now, but they have also had some faults over the last couple of weeks where you had some questionable turnovers, late game miscues, just not executing down the stretch. So I'm kind of wondering which to give it to, at least for this one game. and what to look for going forward. Is Boston really that great of a defensive team? Because they also beat the Cavs in some similar sort of fashion. I mean, the Cavs, they want to beat you up too, but they want to go fast. They want to keep up. They want to shoot the lights out like Golden State.
Right.
But I mean, it's sort of from a defense perspective, they like to get in there and get kind of dirty too. I mean, you got a guy like Tristan Thompson, you got a guy like J.R. Smith that are sort of, I like to call them grinders. I don't know. What do you think? If you took the one way or the other, would you give it to Boston's defense or would you give it to the slumping of Golden State's offense?
I go Boston's defense right away because of Marcus Smart and Avery Bradley. Both of them are dogs on defense. Their offense has, especially Avery Bradley, his offense has come a long way. Marcus Smart is always, he was the guy at Oklahoma State, but that was in college. Marcus Smart's a defender, and I heard, I don't remember who did the game commentating last night, but I heard them say Marcus Smart feeds off of his defense. When most guys they begin to get animated off of getting a shot up and getting going on the offensive end, Marcus Smart gets going off of getting stops and deflections. Mm-hmm. And you can see that they take it personally when they can put the clamps down on guys. Yeah, Clay got 28, but on most guys, against most teams, his 28 might have been 36.
This is true.
And they got, not only that, they have two guards who can shut you down, and Avery and Bradley and Smart, but they also got that guy Jay Crowder who's willing to play defense on your small forward, which would have been KD last night, but it wasn't. So they got another body to throw at you. And if you can throw another body at them, this is why I look at Draymond Green, and I don't think Draymond Green's an all-star. I think he's just a big mouth. Draymond Green didn't make an impact last night. When you need Draymond Green to make an impact, like last night, he was nowhere to be found.
This is true. I also noticed that from a size perspective, and I mean, the camera adds 10 pounds to everyone, but from a size perspective, you can notice that Boston outsized Golden State when they went to their second unit. And so a lot of that game, most of the reason of why Golden State was playing that game so close, other than the fact that Clay and Curry got in early foul trouble, was a testament to the fact that the second unit for Golden State just couldn't punch through and capitalize on the inexperience, if you would, of Boston's second unit. And Boston just simply played defense. They didn't need to score, but they scored enough to keep pace with Golden State, which again, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's definitely a testament to Boston's defense. I'm still kind of wondering what's happening to Golden State right now, because they're having some very close wins or big losses against and it's all over the board. I mean, you can't really pin it down to one thing, except for the fact that Kevin Durant is now missing, and they don't have a second unit that's been capitalizing the way that they used to. You mean you can't depend on Andre Iguodala for another 20-point game to get you out of a game against someone like Atlanta, and you can't depend on Sean Livingston all the time coming off of the bench.
Outside of those two, who do you have though?
Exactly, but I guess still though, for this one game, I'll say Boston's defense. However, over a longer period of time, now the question remains: you have a surging San Antonio with a great play from Kawhi Leonard, who's definitely in the running. I mean, supposedly he's finished second in the running from Steph Curry's unanimous MVP vote. But do you think that this is Kawhi's year to win the MVP and San Diego's opportunity to overtake Golden State for that number one seed overall?
So the first question, I guess I'm a homer. I say no. This is Rush's year to get the MVP. He's averaging a triple-double, and it's nothing you can do. But with all respect to Kawhi Leonard is a stud. He is playing on both ends of the ball, and I give respect to Kawhi Leonard because guys like Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, and Jimmy Butler to me get respect because they came into the league known as defenders first, and not for their offense. Kawhi Leonard, Jimmy Butler, and PG have worked on their offense to the point where they're now known as two-way players. Kawhi Leonard will shut your guy down. Perfect example, he'll put the clamps on a guy like Steph Curry, pick his pockets, by dribbling right in front of him. But I mean, as far as San Antonio goes, I think San Antonio has the moxie to beat Golden State. And I say that because when KD gets back, he's going to be rusty. I'm not saying that KD's a professional scorer, and guys like him don't stay rusty long. So I expect a week, 4 games before he's back to KD, before that offense is running back as a well-oiled machine. But I think Golden State is overcome by San Antonio because they don't, like you mentioned, they don't have the bodies. They don't have the skill up front that San Antonio does. Pau Gasol makes all the difference. Dedmon, Jonathan Simmons, Manu, Patty Mills, that's their bench. Those are guys on the bench. You name Iguodala, you name Sean Livingston, and you name I forgot the other kid's name. But they don't. Most of the bench consists of guards for Golden State, with an exception to David West and JaVale McGee, who I don't think they're going to give much time to in the playoffs. So I look for it to be Golden State and San An in the Western Conference Finals, and a 7-game series where San Antonio takes Golden State over.
So here's another question for you. And then we'll move on quickly from this. So looking at the standings right now, 1 through 4, you have Golden State 1, San Antonio 2, Houston 3, Utah 4.
And Utah 4.
Would you, if you're Golden State, would you rather go through Houston or would you rather go through Utah?
If I'm going to really go about that, I'd rather go through Utah because Lou Williams being added to Houston. I'll put it like this. When James Harden goes to the bench, there's another 2 guys, Eric Gordon, Lou Will, who can and will get buckets. Not they're able to, they can and they will. So when your guy, the only difference is the one thing I'll give credit to Golden State for is Sean Livingston and Iguodala are 6'8", 6'9" guys who can handle the ball, which means they take you to the block and they'll post you up and drawing fouls in your small guards. But on the other end, I would definitely take a page out of Boston's book and I would make Clay defend. I'd make Steph defend because when you got to defend a guy like James Harden for 48 minutes, when you got to defend Eric Gordon, a 6th man of the year, and Lou Williams, you got to really defend those guys. So if I were Golden State, I want to go through Utah because they have length. Utah does, and they have a guy in Gordon Hayward who can score, but they can't score it. They can't come at you in waves. And I think you can wear them down.
And so now that we have a good assessment of how more exciting the West will be, and everyone should be very thankful for Kevin Durant getting injured because now there is more parity, and Golden State being the Western Conference representative in the NBA Finals isn't such an assured thing right now. So
they look beatable.
It's like seeing Superman bleed. In the East, now we have Boston, who's basically punched the top 2 guys in the mouth and said, "Come on, stand up and fight me." Does this give more of a parity to the Eastern Conference now? And do you think that Boston is a legitimate threat to either be in the Eastern Conference Finals or be the Eastern Conference champion?
I think Cleveland adding Darren Williams, which is a sneaky good move, is a good move because Darren Williams, he still has a lot to give. He might be coming off the bench for Cleveland, but he still has a lot to give. Dude was an all-star. And he's no Kyrie Irving, but I guarantee you don't leave him wide open for a mid-range or 3-point shot. I guarantee you he can run a team if he were a starting point guard. If he were opposite LeBron in the backcourt with and not Kyrie, they'd be all right. And I feel like with Boston not making a move, it says a lot to the trust they have in their guys. It says a lot to the trust in the team they throw out there. Because they throw a team out there for you, they throw guys out there in waves. And I like their guys. Their guys are scrappy.
So let me get this. Just to be clear, you feel that the Cavs, the 1-2 setting for the Eastern Conference is going to be the representative there are going to be the representative teams in the Eastern Conference Finals.
I don't think Toronto did enough. I love Serge. I love Serge so much, but I don't think that he's enough to put them over the top and make them a legit contender or a threat to Cleveland.
Have you taken into account the recent Bogut injury? I mean, let's talk about that for a second. Andrew Bogut being on the court for almost 1 minute. And I know that the jokes have gone around. Twitter blew up with Andrew Bogut getting injured, with how often he gets injured. Warriors fans know his injury history in and out from having him on the team for so long. But I have to ask, and if any of you had the actual opportunity to go see the video, you know that this was sort of like a
freak accident.
It was a freak accident. I mean, there's no other way to put it. Two guys bumped legs, and a few people are saying that Bogut may have extended the leg a little bit, which is neither here nor there. It's the simple fact that collision happened, and he's got a fractured tibia. I mean, that's a really you see it in fighting sports all the time, where it's a bone on bone injury, and a fracture. I mean, although it's just a fracture, it still takes a lot of time to heal. But let's go down the list here. How heavy do you think this impact is to the Cavs, considering that they had just signed him? How crazy do you think it is that Bogut of all people got injured, and now do the Cavs need to reset, or are they still okay? Did they even really need Bogut in the first place?
I don't think Bogut played a big part in their team. You can't factor in a guy who didn't play more than a minute on your squad. You're basically putting him down on paper and saying, "Oh, okay, cool, he might be good." Didn't they fly in Larry Sanders to possibly train to work out with the team? Isn't he still around to possibly sign? Wouldn't it make sense to sign another younger shot blocker or a paint protector in a Larry Sanders? That's still up on the table. And I feel like this doesn't stop Cleveland from representing the East. The only thing that stops Cleveland from representing the East is LeBron James. And if you really want to be honest about it, if you can figure out a way to stop LeBron James, then you can figure out a way to get Cleveland to dethrone Cleveland as the champions.
Do you think that Boston can apply the same method that they used to beat the Warriors today, that they sort of used to beat Cleveland last week? Do you think that they use that and it'll work for a 7-game series?
The one thing that I look at in the NBA is something that I'll see a lot of players do not have, but LeBron James does have, and it's called offensive awareness. You can't do the same thing to LeBron for 7 games in a series. It's going to be, if you beat this LeBron James, that they call him playoff LeBron James, in a 7-game series, you deserve the championship. Because doing what you did to him last week to beat him, you can't do that again. I'm pretty sure he is, he's a basketball savant. You're not going to beat him twice the same way. And if you do beat him twice the same way, then he takes his hat off to you. He meets you at half court. He shakes your hand and says, "Good luck in the finals," because that's where you're going to beat him at. You're going to beat him in the finals. And you're going to beat him in the Eastern Conference Finals, and it's going to be to get to the NBA Finals. I think throwing Jay Crowder at him will be one thing, but to do it for 4, 5, 6, 7 games, it's going to weigh on Jay Crowder just a little bit more than it's going to weigh on LeBron James. So I go Cleveland still.
Well, if you were, I mean, I was looking at the game last night against Golden State, and I don't think that Boston's going to need Jay Crowder to be anything more than a defender. I mean, that's sort of what he was in their previous series last year in the playoffs. This series, they're doing a lot bigger job defensively overall, which essentially keeps them in it. And I feel like they're if you were looking at it like NASCAR racing and they were in a pit, you're there's basically that car that sits behind their partner and just drafts on them and waits for the right time to just capitalize on that. And
Right.
after you've been the front runner for about 3/4 of the race, you run out of gas, and then here comes that guy that's been drafting you the entire time in his tires. There's a little less tread on his tires. He's got a little bit more gas in the tank than you, and he just sprints and takes off, and then all of a sudden you lose that lead. And I think that their defense collectively may be able to get them past Cleveland, but they have to be a little bit more consistent because, like you said, you're going to need to find 4 different ways to beat LeBron James, and LeBron James found a different way halfway through, and it just completely got away from Boston last year. So hopefully they find a way to at least give us some excitement and make it at least a 7-game series this year.
You got to stop J.R. Smith, too. J.R. Smith will be back. You're going to have to contain, because you can't stop him. You got to contain Kyrie. And guess who else is basically beginning to make headway on their team? Derek Williams. Derek Williams is looking like what they wanted him to look like when they drafted him. When I say when he was drafted. Because he basically has – his confidence has come out of nowhere. And I'm just like, man, this guy he's playing great. But I feel like that's where their team has become a little bit more deadly. You basically are not going to just be able to line up on LeBron and say, beat me, Kyrie. Beat me, Kevin Love, because Kevin Love will be back as well. But I feel like they become a little bit more dangerous because of the guys they do have. JR, Kevin Love aren't playing. Now Derek Williams, he gets a defined role on the bench along with Richard Jefferson. These guys are going to throw they're going to throw guys at you on waves, and that's what it looks like. If you can't handle their wave, you can't handle that first wave, then you can't handle them. I like the matchup with Boston for Cleveland because Al Horford, Kevin Love, Jay Crowder, LeBron James, Amir Johnson, whomever they have playing center, Isaiah Thomas against Kyrie, and Avery Bradley against either JR or Amon. It's going to be a really good matchup. It's going to come down to the bench. Can a guy will the lights become too bright for Jaylen Brown? Can Terry Rozier knock down those jump shots that he was knocking down in the regular season? Better yet, I'm joking on all accounts, but can Kelly Olynyk break Kevin Love's shoulder again? Because then we can have a different series.
Oh, flashbacks already. And that coincidentally, that happened in game 1 of their series
2 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm sure Kevin Love's getting some flashbacks if they happen to meet up again at some point in the playoffs. Quickly before we cut out here for the break, we had a couple of matchups coming up tonight. A couple of important ones. Clippers, who are just barely hanging in there, just sort of floundering around in the standings, going up against a very tough Memphis team. Cleveland gets to try to get another win, going to Detroit. And the bigger one and the most important game tonight is going to be San Antonio going to Oklahoma City, which tees off in about an hour and a half. And again, we talked about two guys that are MVP candidates right now, Kawhi Leonard and Russell Westbrook. Just your take on that game. Who takes that game and why?
Judging from a once again, I'm on a homer standpoint. I'm hoping Oklahoma City can stop this 4-game losing streak and get us. We need a win. But San Antonio is playing some great ball right now. They've won 9 straight, and they're 9-1 in their last 10, and they are 27-7 on the road. But they're going up against the Oklahoma City Thunder team that's 23-9 at home. So I'm looking at if Oklahoma City can get out quickly, because we beat them once this year. First game of the season, that's a different team from now and then. But if we can get out to a quick lead, it'll go a long way and to developing confidence in our, as Shaq calls them, the others on the Oklahoma City Thunder team. On the opposite side, San Antonio, just keep knowing what you're doing because you guys know you're going to the playoffs. It's just a matter of where your seating is and who you're priming getting ready for. Hopefully, we can get a good showing from Kawhi and Russell.
Well, that'll do it for us for now. We're going to head to a break. Tune in for the second half of Hitting the Hardcourt. Thanks for tuning in for this first half, and we will see you guys shortly. Oh, coming up after the break, we're going to be talking some top 5 candidates, seeing who's coming to some teams in the NBA. Get your brackets ready. Let's talk about some teams in the NCAA, some conference tournament play going on right now, and we're really interested to see who's going to come out of that and which team do you think has the best chance of landing a top pick, as landing one of their players as a top pick in the NBA draft coming up. We'll see you soon.